Hello, everyone. I wanted to jump on here and talk a little bit about um, Mercury Station Direct. It is happening. I'm trying to pull this up on my um, screen here for myself to look at, and then I will share it here in just a moment. But okay, so I wanted to talk about this Mercury Stationing Direct. It is really fascinating to look at this Mercury retrograde season and what has transpired during it. We've had an eclipse happen during this time. We had Mercury in its pre-shadow period with the first lunar eclipse happening in Libra. And by the time we got to the solar eclipse in Aries, Mercury was retrograde. And then we had this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction happen during this retrograde period. And there's been all of these dynamics of culmination and then also wanting something to be birthed and started anew. And if you are new to evolutionary astrology, when we're looking at Mercury and Jupiter, it's a planetary pair. And so often it's about recovering our natural voice, recovering our ability to be our own natural authority, and the ability to really tap into our intuition. And Mercury is our logical linear left brain, whereas Jupiter is our intuition, our right brain. Meaning Mercury likes to take in information, knowledge, and it likes to analyze it and internalize it. And that's really looking at the co-rulership of Mercury, which is Gemini and Virgo. Gemini likes to, what's the word I want to use? Gemini likes to very much take in a variety of information. It's always on the go. If you're someone who has a lot of Gemini, you might be the person who really wants to go to the next shiny thing. It's like in EA, we talk about it, it's concentric circles, and there's this need to pull in the Jupiter function, which is, Sag, the polarity of Gemini, to be able to stick with something so that all the parts can come in, so then we can intuit it in a conceptual way. But the inner side of Mercury is Virgo. So if we're being taught something in a very Gemini way, we're being confronted with knowledge, then in the sign of Virgo, we're taking that information and we're bringing it inward as a way to internalize and to analyze it, to look at it in a step-by-step type of approach. And then with Jupiter, there's a natural square from Virgo to Sag, Sag being the ruler of Jupiter. It's where we can really conceptualize everything that we've taken in, that we've learned, that we've explored, and then that we've analyzed and assimilated. And so it does, it makes it to where things are conceptual, where we can intuit them. So whenever we're looking at this Mercury retrograde season, Mercury has been ruled by Mars and Pisces throughout the totality of this retrograde season. And I'm going to bring up this chart for all of us to look at. And what this has reflected is this need to culminate, and the desires that we each have to culminate the ways in which we have learned things about ourselves, as a way to be able to create space for new to come in, to be able to take the wisdom that we've learned throughout this time period of the eclipse season. And then with Jupiter and Uranus conjunct, it's been about now, because it's a new phase conjunction, it's been about really what feels authentic to us, Jupiter, as a way to expand upon our relationship to self, Taurus, and to liberate from old ways of crystallized thinking that have become stuck, as a way to facilitate this process of culminating. And throughout this culmination period of where we've learned things, whether that be guilt, shame, or false beliefs about ourselves, it creates space for us to understand what is authentic to us, where can we empower ourselves with our natural voice. So as Mercury stations, it's conjunct this north node, meaning that now we get to put this information into place, okay? And then what we get to do with this information is we get to now self-discover more on an authentic level and to follow and tap into our intuition. If you look at Jupiter and Uranus, it's in a sextile to Mars and Neptune. And they're in the sign of Pisces. So yes, there's this culmination period, but there's also this need to really tap into what is our inner voice speaking to? Where is the inner direction going? What feels authentic to our nature? Because this is a time period of where we're really liberating from these old dynamics, these old ways of thinking, of these crystallized structures within that don't feel authentic to who we are. And with this Taurus dynamic, especially Uranus and Jupiter conjunct in the sign of Taurus, it's about not only liberating from this, but also it's about reconnecting with our own sense of individuality on a soul level. And the need is, with Mercury direct, is to take in more information so we can self-discover more about who we are, so we can tap into what our own unique individuality is, what our own sense of authentic nature is. So this can be where we are now having these thoughts seeded to us around the desires that are coming into our consciousness right now that we're meant to act on, that it's some type of soul direction, some inner guidance about this is the path to take, this is the thing to study, this is this philosophical cosmological view of what it is that, you know, our souls are desiring to explore that feel authentic to our nature, so that way we can understand what we value and what we give meaning to, instead of in the past this has been about everything that's been learned. And Mercury retrograde has been this deep internal process of taking in this information through us self-reflecting. If you look at Mercury and Saturn here, they are in a crescent phase semi-sextile. And what that means is there's something there that we know that we're meant to act on, that maybe we have acted on before, but then we pumped the brakes, right? Things got a little bit too scary, where we feel like we're having too much forward momentum. And keeping in mind, I'm going to stop this share, keeping in mind that, you know, cardinal signs, Aries, Capricorn, Cancer, Libra, are where we are initiating something new, but yet there can be this 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And the 2 steps forward is the momentum, the choices that we're making, and the 1 step back is, oh my gosh, I'm doing something new and I'm kind of freaking out here. It's new. This is uncharted, unfamiliar territory. And so there's this need to self-reflect so that way we understand that we are making a correct judgment call. And that's part of, you know, Saturn being pulled into this conversation during this Mercury direct motion. So if you're someone who's feeling a little sense of fear around what direction you're meant to take, the beauty is that we're in the post-shadow period now. So all of this information that we've been taking in is really going to start to be intuited on a deeper level. And all we have to do is listen to our inner voice. That's Taurus. Taurus is about connecting with that inner voice. It's about connecting with our inner resources, and inner resources is inner knowledge that we contain. So this whole Mercury retrograde cycle has been about gathering new information on a very deep internalized process throughout the eclipse season. So the things that you've been learning about yourself and reflecting on, this is a time period where we can be dotting I's and crossing T's around the information that we've taken in. That way we can start to intuit the direction that we're meant to take. And, you know, Mercury on that north node going direct is very much about putting this in place. And we're looking at how do we use this as a way to be whole into ourselves, to stay sovereign, to create independence and freedom. And it's freedom of the known, of what was once how we were living through the knowledge and the conditioning that we had learned. If you've been self-reflecting on what's needing to culminate in your life, now this is about taking these baby steps to do so. So I want to share my screen here. This is May 17th. I'm going to go to the 5th. We can see on May 5th that Mercury is at that 19-degree mark that solar eclipse was at. Okay, so if you had something that came up around that time, there can be deep insight as to the action that we're meant to take and starting to really be seated into our consciousness. At this point in time, Mars, Mercury's ruler, is now going to be in the sign of Aries, which is this signature of, yes, we've been culminating, and now through that culmination, through self-reflecting on this old learning, these old dynamics that have been held within, now there's new desires that are being seeded into our consciousness, and we have a choice. That's the natural sextile between Aries and Gemini. Gemini is about duality. Aries is about action, initiation, and it's about our desires. So there can be choices that are coming up for a lot of us in regard to the information that we've taken in throughout this past Mercury retrograde cycle. Then the very next day, Mercury is going to really be entering in a more strong signature of a balsamic conjunction to this Chiron, okay? And so Chiron, as I've talked about before, is very much about these wounds that we each carry that don't really ever go away, but Chiron here is about changing poison to potion. And we change that poison to potion through changing our awareness around these dynamics. And so very much throughout this whole retrograde cycle, we've been reflecting on these dynamics and wanting to understand what this means for us. What is my awareness around these old wounds? Am I being imprisoned to them? Is it creating a situation where I am not choosing to act on the things that I'm desiring because I am so stuck in this pain? And this can create dynamic tension around wanting to culminate this awareness, these old ways of thinking about our wounds, or where we've been conditioned or learned that the only way we can feel safe or inwardly secure is whenever we're proving ourselves to another. Or Chiron and Aries can be about really not knowing who one is because they've taken in so much conditioning that they've, they're in a perpetual state of an identity crisis. Who am I? And this is really seen and reflected also with, that south node, lunar node being in Libra. So there's these deep lessons in reconnecting with ourselves, creating action in order to do so, creating action to understand ourselves on deeper levels. And then with Mercury and Jupiter and Uranus, this need to really tap into our intuition, our inner voice, our higher intelligence. Higher intelligence is Uranus, as a way to really know which path it is that we're meant to take that feels most authentic to us, so that we can recover our natural voice. Then the next day, Mercury is going to move past this Chiron, all right? It's still going to be conjunct, but it's in a new phase. So this is where we can really start to see that we're changing our awareness around these dynamics, and we're needing to put further action to learn more deeply about ourselves. Then the thing that I find fascinating is on the 17th, Mercury is now going to be in the sign of Taurus, and it's going to be in a first quarter square to Pluto. And a first quarter square is very much where we can have a crisis in action. We're needing to now take the initiative, but we're afraid. And this taking action is revolving around the things that we're needing to liberate from, that we've over-identified with, that have affected our sense of self, Taurus. And this action that we take, if you look at Pluto, it's retrograde. We're re-experiencing dynamics as a way to resolve them, as a way to fortify our relationship to self. So it's this knowledge that we've been taking in around our values, around our needs, the need to be self-sufficient, the need to be self-reliant, the need to tap into our inner voice, the need to rely on our inner knowledge. And this is about, hey, this is here, and now it's time to liberate from the old, as a way to, Uranus being the ruler of that Pluto, really liberate and transform our relationship to self on even deeper levels. The other thing is that there is Venus, which is culminating into Uranus. So we're culminating old relational dynamics of how we got our needs met, how we projected needs onto others, what our values are, stemming from how we had learned to get our needs met early on and throughout our life up until this point. And as we culminate these old dynamics, it helps us liberate from these crystallized structures within our thinking of where we've over-identified. For some people, this can be where we've over-identified with trauma, and now we're needing to create new action as a way to really liberate ourselves from that and to change our awareness around what that means for us. It's also looking at, like, hey, the difference between a truth and a belief about ourselves. I spoke about this. I'm going to stop the share for a second. I spoke about this the other week, which is because Jupiter's in that conversation, it's in a new phase to the sun within that chart. And Venus is culminating into that Jupiter as well. It's culminating into the sun. Jupiter is about where we feel authentic. It's also about what we believe about ourselves, with it being in Taurus, and what is an actual truth about ourselves. I gave the example the other week. I had some really traumatizing relational experiences early on in my early 20s, and it really affected my sense of self. I have Jupiter and Taurus retrograde on my ascendant, so it was this dynamic of, I took in projected beliefs about myself that were not true. And one of them, and I can get pretty personal on here, I don't mind, is I was in a relationship where I experienced a lot of domestic violence. I experienced a lot of sexual assault within that relationship, and emotional trauma. All of these dynamics that really wreaked havoc on the way I felt about myself and my self-esteem. And my belief is that I felt like I wasn't worthy, that I was gross. And the truth is that I am worthy and I'm not gross, just because those experiences happened. So this can be a time where we're culminating those old ways of how we've thought and felt about ourselves. And now there's needing to really tap into what our authentic nature is. What are our personal truths about ourselves? How do you talk to yourself? There's this new evolutionary cycle with Jupiter on the 17th and that new phase conjunction to the sun. That sun is very much about, with it being in Taurus, how to self-actualize through being more self-sufficient and cultivating a deeper relationship to self. It's about understanding what it is that we do value and what we do need and how we can rely on ourselves. And with Jupiter in that new phase, it's really speaking to, let's go out and let's lean into what feels authentic for us so we can reconnect with our own sense of individuality. That's also part of Venus and a balsamic conjunction to all of that energy, to Uranus, to the sun, and to Jupiter. It's about culminating what keeps us separate from knowing our authentic individuality. And so we can really see how this Mercury retrograde cycle has been about collecting data, information about ourselves from the past, what we've learned, what we've taken in, dissolving that as, Mars was in Pisces during that time. And now, around the 17th, it's about putting action into where we want to go in life. What does feel authentic to us? What new information do we want to take in that helps us to reconnect with our sense of individuality? And Pluto in that first quarter square to Mercury at that time can be, I've taken in this information, I know what I want to do, but I'm afraid to do it. Because as humans who are emotional beings, our security lies in the known and familiar, even if it's not healthy. And that signature on the 17th is about really liberating from those dynamics in order to understand our unique individuality and our authentic nature. And it's about reestablishing our natural voice. So the last thing I wanted to speak to about in regards to this is during this time, Jupiter is going to be sextile Neptune. And yes, Jupiter is in a new phase conjunction to the sun, but as we tap into our inner voice and our inner guidance, right? That's the beauty of Taurus and Pisces. They naturally sextile each other. Pisces is source, it's timelessness, it's universal, it is the totality of the truth, it is source, and it's pure consciousness. So as we tap into our pure emotion, our pure emotional body, and we tap into our inner voice, this is actually connecting with source and our soul and our own soul's guidance. And that Jupiter is about following our intuition and our inner guidance that is directly connected to our soul. Our soul and our personality are not separate. A lot of religious cosmologies have us believing that. It's quite frankly, it's sad, but our soul picks our personality in this lifetime. Some people call it our ego, as a way for us to evolve. We only evolve through our emotional body. So if you look at your own natal chart, you can see your moon and the house that it's in and the sign, and you're dealing with these emotional dynamics as a way to evolve. So your moon is your ego, your personality that your soul has chosen in this lifetime, because it thinks that, hey, this is what's going to get me to evolve on an emotional level. And that Jupiter sextile Neptune is about making sure that we're still tapped into our emotional body and that we're tapping into our pure emotions. And that way we can have the ability to listen to our inner voice and our inner direction as to what path it is that we're needing to take in order to reconnect to our authentic nature, as opposed to what's been conditioned or learned. So it's really important to follow your inner guidance at this time. That inner doorway is always open. All you have to do is listen. The last thing I do want to say about Mercury retrograde, is this is the information that you're going to be implementing to follow that direction that's emanating from within. There are new desires that are being seeded into our consciousness right now as we've been working on this in healing. That Jupiter sextile Neptune is very much about healing through following our intuition and our inner guidance. And it teaches us about how to be self-reliant, how to trust oneself, how to trust one's inner voice. So a lot of us are reclaiming our natural voice right now, the ability to trust that. The other thing is yes, on the 17th, Mercury in Taurus is going to be in that first quarter square to Pluto in Aquarius. Mercury and Taurus can be where we experience inertia. I don't know what direction to take. And that first quarter square calls for us to take action. So the best thing to do when working with Taurus energy is to ground into one's own inner voice and to trust it. So I just wanted to speak on that for this week, since today Mercury is direct. I, of course, will be talking about this week by week in my weekly forecast. Tomorrow I am going to put out a video where I'm going to be going over that workshop over karmic inheritance. And I'm trying to figure out, I am not tech savvy, but I'm going to figure out a way for you guys to sign up for it on my website. Like I said, I'm only allowing 4 people at a time because I want this to be very intimate. It's really tapping into our conditioning and why we pick our conditioning, and we're looking at it through 3 generations. I'm going to give that lecture, and then the following 4 weeks, I'm going to allow each person that's in this workshop to look at their charts of 3 people, you know, within their family system, and us go over it and learn about it, and then learn about, you learn about yourself. It gives students an opportunity to learn how to see this in the chart. So I'll be going over that tomorrow in a video that I post. And the other thing that I do want to say is that I do still have my Taurus birthday specials running until next month, May 20th. So if you were born under the sun sign of Taurus, come see me. It's $75. It's an hour and a half long. We will meet on Zoom. I will record it so you can have it indefinitely. And we're going to go over your natal chart, which is why you chose to come here. What's your evolutionary journey in this lifetime? What are you trying to actualize? It's the purpose. And then we're going to be going over your solar return, which are the themes that are coming up this year in order to utilize that in tandem with your own natal chart. I would love to see you. It's a great deal. I usually charge $200 for a natal reading, and then $125 for repeat clients. So if you're someone who's really been wanting a reading and to understand yourself, if you're a Taurus, you can get that reading for $75. It's a way to connect with you guys. It's also, inflation is crazy. I want you guys to feel like it's affordable. If you feel like this resonates with you and you're wanting to really understand the way that your soul is structured and what you're here to do, it's a fabulous tool. And next month I will have a Gemini special. So each month this year I will be giving birthday specials out as a way to connect with each one of you. So I hope you guys have a great day. I want you guys to really trust yourselves, trust your voice, whatever path it is that you're wanting to take. It can be scary, but it is really about fortifying your relationship to self and creating and cultivating more self-reliance when we trust our intuition. And that is part of this Mercury Jupiter planetary pair, is recovering our own natural inner voice. And a lot of healing can take place. This is, you know, technically during this eclipse cycle that we just had, we are still feeling these energies, and this is a beautiful time to sit out in nature and to journal and to reconnect with our sense of authenticity and our own unique individuality. So, of course, comment, interact with me. I love it. And I will talk to you all soon.